just basically say,
Okay.
what are you doing?
Welcome everyone to our committee meetings for Monday, February 12th. And we're going to start off with county services maybe.
Okay, county services at 6:02. We have 4 action items and we also have a presentation, and I'd like to invite Marley Hornick.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your time and attention. I am the Executive Director of New York Citizens Audit. I'm also the founder of New York Citizens Audit from August of 2021. And so we just want to show you, I heard that you were concerned and wanted to see some Greene County data. So I brought that. But before we look at that information, I wanted to go over a couple of particular kind of overarching themes in federal law that help us all to understand how important the registration databases are and what is the significance of their accuracy or inaccuracy. Because there's a lot of information that's kind of spread around about dirty voter rolls. And it doesn't matter if it didn't impact an election or whatever. So I want to show you, first I want to show you what are how does the federal government, how does the US Department of Justice view voter roll data? And then what did we find in Greene County? Not in the Greene County database. What I will show you is from the New York State Board of Elections database for Greene County, okay? So the first principle is from Thomas Paine about accuracy in our elections, because the right of voting for representatives is a primary right by which other rights are protected. And, oh, you know what, this is a...
And he ran a newspaper of common sense.
He did. He published Common Sense. And I just bring this one up because Hugo Black, so Thomas Paine was what we might call a conservative, right? And Hugo Black, who was a justice of the Supreme Court for 30 years or more, he was appointed by FDR, a known progressive justice, and he basically holds the same opinion. So the reason I put these 2 slides up first is because I want everyone to know that New York Citizens Audit has no horse in the race. We don't represent any party, we don't represent any candidate, and we have no stake in the outcome of any particular election. We're concerned about the accuracy and compliance of our elections because that's how our sovereignty is protected. And actually, the next slide is kind of interesting. You can't read any of it. It doesn't matter if you can read it or not. The point is, this is the US Constitution. Here's the first sentence, we the people. Here's the second sentence, all legislative powers are, basically assigned to the Congress. And then here's the third sentence. It is up to the people of the several states. They shall choose their representatives. So this is such a fundamental right that you actually find it in the third sentence of the Constitution. Now, I want to just point out from our 14th Amendment, again, you're probably not going to be able to read this language, so I'll read it. In the 14th Amendment, they decided, and of course, at the time, this was largely based on racial discrimination that had been taking place and the freeing of the slaves. This was very important at the time, and it continues to be important, which is if the right to vote at any election is denied to the eligible citizen registrants of a particular state, or in any way abridged. So in 1964, the Supreme Court ruled that denial of the vote is an equal violation to dilution of the vote, which is where the ballots are stuffed or the systems are stuffed with votes or ballots from not qualified registrants, right, or someone else. If this takes place in your state, the state is going to lose apportionment. This is the 14th Amendment of the US Constitution. If the civil right of the citizens of that state are denied or abridged regarding suffrage, the state loses federal funding, it loses congressional representation, and it loses electoral college votes. That's how important the accuracy of our vote is.
But that goes hand in hand with the census as well.
Correct. That's a very good point.
So it's every 10 years.
Right.
It's in there in the 14th Amendment, it's every decade.
Right. I am happy to field any questions, but it's my understanding that I have 15 minutes.
Oh, okay, I'm
So
sorry.
I'd like to focus on what I can share in that period of time, because I could talk for 7 hours. Okay? The National Voter Registration Act of 1993, the fourth purpose of the National Voter Registration Act, federal law governing the process of our election administration, says to ensure that accurate and current voter registration rolls are maintained. The Help America Vote Act of 2002 says the state voter roll database contains the name and registration information of every legally registered voter in the state and assigns a unique identifier to each legally registered voter in the state. I'm gonna skip that one. There is an error rate, that's what this slide is about. The Help America Vote Act of 2002 actually decided that federal elections have to adhere to a specific error rate. There's a maximum error rate, an accuracy requirement in our federal elections as of 2002. And that error rate, the allowable error rate, is 1 in 125,000 ballots in error, which is an accuracy requirement, a maximum error rate of 0.0008% error to certify a federal election. It's a very stringent requirement, and they say that the reason is that's so that the likelihood of voting system errors affecting the outcome of an election is exceptionally remote, even in the closest of elections. And to be honest, in 2022, which we will look at some data from 2022, there was a federal election in New York State with a margin of victory of 0.6%. So you can see why the system error rate has to be, you know, basically 10,000 times less than that, or 1,000 times less than that, so that everyone at 0.6% has confidence. That's the whole point, right? That if the system is accurate, then everyone can have confidence in the result. Now, I just want to bring up a couple of these particular principles of prosecution. The United States Department of Justice published a guide to the prosecution of election fraud. They define election fraud as basically affecting the registration of voters, the distribution and counting of ballots, and the final tallying and certification of results. If something affects one of those three processes, the DOJ calls that fraud. Just to be honest, that's not me, that's them. So they published this guideline for US attorneys if they're not familiar with how to deal with election fraud and what are the Supreme Court precedents, what are the Federal Circuit precedents, and how have these kind of issues been decided in our history going back to as far as 1888 in this particular document. And one of the things that they say constitutes federal election fraud is voting for individuals who do not personally participate in or assent to the voting act attributed to them, or casting ballots in the names of voters who do not vote in federal elections. And there's the legal citations. That's one possible definition of fraud. Submitting fictitious names to election officers for inclusion on voter registration rolls, thereby qualifying the ostensible voters to vote in federal elections. Again, we're not on social media right now talking about dirty voter rolls. We're looking at what the Department of Justice of the United States of America calls fraud. And they have a very good reason, because if you have fictitious names on the rolls, those people are considered eligible to vote and are granted a ballot. So the accuracy requirement has to prevent them from getting into the rolls. Okay, I'm gonna skip completely now, and we're gonna go to some Greene County data. And I apologize because it's probably going to be too tiny for you to read, but I'm gonna do my best to read it to you. And I can make it a little bit bigger, perhaps. So again, these are all registration records. This is raw data from the New York State Board of Elections pertaining to Greene County exclusively. So this first set of registration records, here's their registration date in orange or pink, whatever, and here's their last voted date. So you have this, well, I'm almost all the way at the bottom of this row. I was looking for the total from 2023. Basically, if you take a look at this file, what you see is a registration date at the top of June 26, 2023, and a last voted date of November 3rd, 2020. You see a registration date of June 26, 2023, and a last voted date of June 22nd, 2021. So if the column is pink, this is a 2023 registration date. And what you see, why these yellow horizontal bars are there? Each one of those yellow horizontal rows is a registration record that voted in 2022. Because it's very difficult to sort through all of this, so I highlighted those so you can see what was the outcome regarding our most recent federal election. So these are all registered in 2023. And as you can see, there are a lot of these horizontal yellow rows where a registrant whose registration date is a year after or months after the election has apparently voted. And of course, the non-yellow rows, some of them are 2020. This one, I mean, I don't know, registered in 2023, voted in 2012. I'm not saying that there's not some kind of plausible explanation, but I think the people of the United States of America deserve the explanation line by line. Because this isn't the kind of thing you can just wave a wand and it goes away. And I can scroll as fast or slow as you would like. This is just Greene County now. So now we're into people who registered in April of 2023, but voted in 2022. I am not trying to accuse anyone of anything. I have no idea why this happened, but this happened.
Does it tell you where they voted though?
Well,
They had to have voted in the state of New York, yes?
yeah, this is all New York State voter roll data. Yes.
So nobody relocated up here from someplace else and registered to vote with the new residents.
Well, this one says it's purged because they moved. So you see the data has all these different fields, and I blew it up so people can see, but we can scroll over. So you can take a look and see. So this person was registered to vote on February 28th of 2023. They last voted on November 5th of 2019. The registration is purged because they moved, which is not a valid reason to purge a record under the law. Actually, that's not what you do when someone moves, because remember, each registrant is assigned a unique statewide identifier. So if you move from Florida to Tennessee, you don't get a new social security number. They keep your record, they turn it inactive under the law, under the National Voter Registration Act. That record is inactivated because if you come back, they have to give you the same number. It has to be an auditable record because these records represent our government by consent. If whoever is in these voter roll databases is considered validated and considered eligible to vote and given a ballot. That's why the National Voter Registration Act says these records have to be accurate. So this person was registered in 2023, voted in 2019, is purged because she moved or he moved, and the purge date is 3 months after the registration date. So how did the Board of Elections send this person a yellow card and receive a response within a 3-month time period, and the vote was cast in 2019? I don't know the answer to that question, but I think the American people deserve the answer to that question. Because when these records are voting, it raises a serious question. Who are these registrations? How is this being affected in our voter roll data? Now I'm going to go to a different field. Voter identity unverified. Okay, so these are records where everything lines up over here. You've got your reg dates are before your last voted date. So that looks good. And we're going to scroll over quite a ways. You can see all these different fields that are in the voter roll data, your congressional district, all of these different elements that constitute your complete registration record. But here in column AT, what the heck does that say? It says ID required, and there's a yes in column AT. In column AU, it says ID met, and there's a no. So again, this is only 4 votes in the 2022 election, but none of these people's identity was ever verified by the Board of Elections somewhere. I don't know who. Are these, you know, is this at the state level? Is it, I have absolutely no idea, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but this is not right. These are 4 illegal votes in the Greene County 2022 election that are counted at the state level. They constitute part of the certified result of the 2022 election for New York State. Now, let's have some fun. Here is the age, the current age of the registrant, 174. Date of birth, these are all January 1st, 1850. Here's a 2022 vote, but there's other stuff in here that's just, I have to move this. I think I have to make it a little bit smaller so I can show you.
I look young for my age.
No, it's not on your account. No, it's for the people way in the back. Okay, so this person is 174 years old, born on January 1st, 1850, last voted in 2018, and their registration record is inactive. That means if they go to the polls, they can vote. They're not purged, and they're still considered, you know, a valid registrant. If you go to the polls in New York State and your registration record is inactive, you can show ID, you can show proof, you can bring them an electric bill, and they'll give you a ballot, literally. This one, this one was purged because they moved. So again, this person is 174 years old, born on January 1st, 1850, last voted in 2010, and they're purged from the database. But if this thing wasn't here, you would see they were purged because they moved. I don't know. I have no explanation for this, but these need to be explained, every single one of them, because this is absolutely intolerable. Here, and I'll scroll down because we're looking at all these ones that they call this a default date. Now, you know, when they say a default date, that's a red flag too, because this is a database that is part of our critical national security infrastructure. And I met with the New York State Police Special Investigations Unit in June of 2022 to show them some of this stuff, but something else entirely as well that I'm not going to go into tonight. And they took that investigation that we handed them. We had met for 3 hours, and they said, we have to hand this investigation over to the Foreign Intelligence Task Force of the FBI. I said, okay, why? Because what do I know? And they said, because this is part of our national security infrastructure. And so if there is evidence that that infrastructure may have been tampered with or breached, there's always the possibility that it was a foreign entity, a foreign actor. So that's why these have to be answered for, like literally, not with a wave of the wand saying, well, it's just a default date. We just entered a default date into part of our national security infrastructure. When did the American people make a unilateral decision together that that was okay? Somebody decided that for us, but do we agree? It's a reasonable question, right?
Isn't it true that they did not have to provide a date of birth?
You have to be 18.
Yeah, but years ago, they didn't have to
Right.
put a date of birth on there.
Correct. Registration laws and requirements have changed.
Right. So
However,
to
they
me-
haven't changed in decades. And there's no reason, when you have this kind of registration issues, there's no reason, at some point you have to ask yourself, okay, let's just say that let's say 95% of them are legitimately, they didn't have a birth date and they entered a default date of January 1st, 1850, which I have no idea why they would choose that default date, but let's just say they did.
Well,
If
that's obvious.
I wanted to inject fictitious registrants into the New York State voter roll database, and I was of a criminal mind, I would say to myself, well, the Board of Elections to the death is going to defend this as a legitimate date. And I would put mine in that category. Because now I can inject all the votes I want to based on registration records that they're going to defend without looking into it, without verifying that every single one of these actually meets that explanation. Now, here we have someone, for example, who is 118 years old, not a January 1st registration, and born on March 13th, 1905, 118 years old, voted in the 2022 election in Greene County. Now, here's another anomaly. There's only one of these, but it's so incredibly inexplicable that I brought it to show you. The person is born, date of birth is August 3rd, 2004. Registration date is September 24th, 2004. Last voted date is November 2nd, 2004. I don't know. I don't know why that's in the system. Why is that part of our database? Now we have people who were registered before they were 16 years old. Now, of course, that is a change to the election law or the eligibility requirements that is very recent. That's only as recent as 2020. That if you register to vote at age 16, you can be added to the database and your registration automatically activates on your 18th birthday. So it's called pre-registration. And here we have a bunch of people who are extremely pre-registered. This person was minus 54 years old. Their date of birth is 1965. Their registration date is 1911. Here's, these pink ones are 2022 votes. Date of birth is December 6th, 1967. Registration date is June 17th, 1967. Voted in the Greene County 2022 election. This is just what we get out of nice voter. I have no explanation for this. This is not okay. And the Department of Justice says this is potentially fraud. I'm not accusing anyone, just to keep saying that. I have no idea how this is happening, but this is not the same as accuracy and it's not the same as compliance. That's what I know. This person was born on June 8th, 1964, registered to vote on June 8th, 1964, voted in the 2022 election.
Marley, what is it that New York Citizens Audit Group is looking for from this board?
We would like your support. We have been bringing, I met with the state police in 2022. I've spoken to the Inspector General's office. I've spoken to basically every kind of law enforcement agent that you could contact in New York State to get help. And we're always accused of being partisan. We're always accused of lying and we're always dismissed. And that is why we have been going around the state since roughly April of 2023 and going to town boards and county legislatures and begging for your help because we think this needs to be audited. We're not even saying we need a criminal investigation. We're saying we need to open up the books. New York State needs to open up the books and find out how is our system broken? Where are the gaps, right? That's what you do. That's why you have audits. Where are the vulnerabilities? Where are the openings? How is this taking place? And we need to repair all of those gaps. And if we don't do that, there is no reason for anyone in New York State to trust the outcome of our elections. They don't meet the standard of the law. That's what we want. We want support. We're the constituents and we are coming to our representatives and saying, we're not getting anywhere. So we're using the public comment period because the Board of Elections is sending letters all over New York State. Don't listen to these liars. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're malicious.
Well, I don't know if anybody's malicious or if they're doing it with intent so much in this county.
No, they're saying we're malicious.
Oh, no, I don't take that as, I find it as informative. But I don't, I'm gonna read up on New York State election law. I don't know what we do in the county as far as if someone dies, how are they removed from the roll? I mean, we're talking about purged and people moving and keeping the same voter registration number that's going to a different county.
Right.
So if, I mean, what can we do on our end? I mean, if somebody has to deal, does a coroner have to turn in a death certificate when they do their job? Does something like that go to the voter,
Yes.
the Board of Elections?
That's exactly what the law requires.
You know, so,
Yes.
and that's just some of the
On a
questions I
monthly
wrote
basis.
here. And the other thing, and I've said it forever, whether you wanna dip your thumb in ink and prove who you are, you should have to have your driver's license or proof of who you are in order to, and that should match your registration on the rolls, even if you don't have your registration card, in order to cast a ballot.
Right, wouldn't it be great if we could all trust in the election process because it was verified? And I agree with you. And this particular file, so the yellows and the blues, these represent individuals registered to vote in Greene County who have more than one unique identifier. Again, I don't know how this happened. I don't know why that is. But the law says, federal law and state law say you get a unique identifier in the state voter roll database, because that way you can't get more than one ballot. It's a fraud prevention mechanism. And every single, so this person has two, this person has two, this person has four, two, three. And these are not like, some of these are definitely potential instances where you have two people with the exact same name and the exact same birth date in New York State. That is possible. But this file is far longer than that could be plausible. And a lot of the names really indicate that that's probably not what happened. Like there's probably not two Miguel Abads born on May 1st, 1989 in Greene County. It's just terribly unlikely. Or Sindra Abate, Samira Abed, Elizabeth Abramajdis, Crystal Acevedo. These are not common names that you would think to yourself, it's likely that this is actually two people. And to be perfectly frank, I met with Sheriff Timothy Whitcomb from Cattaraugus County, I don't even know, a year and a half ago. And he took a bunch of these registration records that actually had two unique votes for each, like each registration record had a vote recorded for the 2020 election. So it appears that a unique registrant was split into two, now appearing to be two voters, and each one of those voters cast a vote. Because in Nice Voter, they can't look at your name, they have to look at your ID number, because your name might not be unique, right? So they count the number of votes by the number of ID numbers, is what I'm trying to say. So Sheriff Whitcomb took a bunch of those and went and canvassed them, because he was wondering, could this have been an error on the part of the elections? Could it have been an error on the part of New York Citizens Audit? And there was one instance where one of the people was two people. So I know that can happen. It's just that the numbers defy a reasonable explanation. And I stopped labeling them, but this file is long. You can see, well, you can't see where the scroll bar is. It hasn't moved. And, just for fun, I'll show you that you're not the only county with a problem. This is Nassau County. Here's status, purged. Again, you have this issue. These are all 2023 registration dates. Last voted in 2020, 2022. Same problem like we saw in Greene County. But this is Nassau. But here, the status of these registrants is purged. So there's three statuses: active, inactive, and purged. And if you're purged, there's absolutely no way to get a ballot. You can't even go to court and get a judge to sign off and activate your registration on the day of the election. If you're purged, you're done. You cannot participate in that election. Now, because of that, state law requires that every registration record that is purged has a purge date. Because if there are votes like this in the voter history, Without a purge date, no living human being can tell you whether the votes happened while the record was active or while the record was purged, right? Because there's no defining cross point, right? So these are records in Nassau County that are purged, and the purge date column here, column K, is blank. They have lots and lots of votes. Unfortunately, I didn't make them yellow for you, this one. But you know, you can see that last voted date column going by, and boy, are there a lot of votes. And we're at row 120 something. And we could be here for hours because this file of purge, no purge date records with votes cast in the voter history is 800,000 rows long. And it's straight out of Nice Voter. I'm not okay with that. That's why I'm not with my kids right now. I don't get paid to be the executive director of New York Citizens Audit. It's a volunteer organization. I am here because I'm not okay with this. And we're asking for your help and support. And so I have brought you the data. I am showing you what the records actually look like. And all we're asking is for your support to say, yeah, it does look like it might be time to open up the books in New York State and take a look at this voter registration process and take a look at the assignment of ballots and see if we can figure out where the problems are so we can solve them. Because this is not compliant with federal law.
So this data you're showing us, where does it come from?
We received it from the New York State Board of Elections pursuant to a Freedom of Information Law request. This is the New York State Voter Roll Database. This particular set of data was requested on July 3rd of 2023. So this is all, that's the most recent copy that New York's, actually we have a more recent copy now, but we haven't done analysis on it yet.
So basically, it's not saying the counties are all wrong, but the state level, at least for the checkbooks, don't.
I don't have a copy of the Greene County Voter Roll Database. Actually, it was not provided from our last Freedom of Information Law request. We were denied the database. So I don't have the Greene County voter rolls to tell you how they compare to Nice Voter. The law in New York State requires the two databases to be real-time updated. So as soon as someone in Greene County enters something, it should reflect exactly as it was entered in Greene County at the state level. I can tell you right now that doesn't happen, and I don't know why, and I don't know who's responsible, and I am not accusing anyone. I'm saying we have to figure out where this is broken. It's broken. And actually, I'll show you one more thing. So based on these different analyses I've shown you, we did a total reconciliation of the database, speaking of the checkbooks not matching. So, I don't know why that's there, it's not on my screen. Maybe I can move this. Oh, okay, I can make this smaller too. Yeah, great, thank you. So out of all the different kinds of registration issues we found in Nice Voter, we basically reduced them down to 4 categories. The first is eligible records. Records where it doesn't look like there's anything wrong and it looks like it really belongs to a voter who's really voting in New York and it looks good. So if those are the registration records that are voting, we're good, it's a green light. We have uncertain records, which are the ones that contain invalid or illogical information, like the registration date is after the last voted date, significantly after. I'm very well aware that during the certification and final canvass period of an election, the Board of Elections may still be updating data pursuant to that election. But once the certification happens, you shouldn't have any of this stuff where you have people registered to vote 8 months later and still voting. That shouldn't take place. So those are uncertain registration records. And then you have ineligible records because they violate black letter law, like the purge, no purge date. The law says you have to have a purge date, 800,000 rows in Nassau County, no purge date. Everyone's okay with that. I'm not okay with that. That's not the law. And then you have this category called deadwood, which is what the Department of Justice calls, that's their word, it's what they call registration records that are in the database and they don't belong there. It doesn't mean that anything necessarily happened, but they're inherently suspicious because they don't belong in the database. They're not people who are eligible to vote at this time. So we zeroed out, we figured out, okay, here's the total number of rows in the database and we got to 0. We had a slight problem when we tried to reconcile the 2022 election because the number of votes counted, according to the New York State Board of Elections website, is different than the number of voters who voted, according to the New York State Voter Roll database. And so it looks like 35,312 more votes were counted than voters who voted. And again, nice voter under federal law is the official record for the registration and participation of voters in the state of New York. It is a federally protected document. Now, we kind of did some analysis here, and what we found out is that the registration error rate for the 2022 election was 14%. The voting error rate, where you have votes cast by registration records that don't appear to comport with the law, maybe there's an explanation, but there were 745,000 of them. So we need to look into that. The voting error rate was 12%, and the margin of victory in the gubernatorial race was 5.7%. So when you have a 12% error rate and you have a margin of victory less than that, the system was not capable of producing a trustworthy result. It just wasn't, it's not that there's anything wrong, it's that we don't know, we just don't know, we're not certain. And the New York Attorney General race was a margin of victory of 9%, and here's that legal accuracy requirement for a federal election, 0.0008%. So we are way out of compliance, and we are nowhere near an accuracy standard that is legally certifiable. Again, I don't know if there's an explanation for all 745,000 of those instances where a registration record that doesn't comport with the law casts a vote. I don't know, but that's an awful lot of investigations that did not take place before certification.
Mike, you got a question?
Yeah, I just, you were saying, have you gotten any explanation from the State Board of Elections on the discrepancies?
No,
They've made any, discussion to effort to,
no, in fact,
explain this?
the first time we contacted the State Board of Elections was on May 9th of 2022. And we didn't know what to do. We made a petition for redress of grievances pursuant to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, which says we have the right of redress of our grievances. So we figured this is a good way to introduce what we've discovered and try to get a meeting. And we told them, and that was the 2020 election. Now the 2020 election had 338,000 more votes counted than voters who voted. They've never addressed that, never at all. They just talk about, well, the January 1st registration dates are defaults. And the purge, no purge date, we'll just pretend we didn't read that paragraph. And I don't know. I can't tell you why this has not been, really listened to. I don't know. But this is we're to the point where no one has any right, again, the Constitution, right? The third sentence of the Constitution, the people of the several states shall choose their representatives. We can't tell if that's what happened. I'm not saying that anyone whose election was certified wasn't elected. I'm saying no one knows. And the Board of Elections will never be able to prove it to us.
Do you have a list of recommendations that would allow proof? Say voter ID, where it shows your date of birth, it shows you're eligible with an address on your whatever,
have-
it's a driver's
yes.
license.
We have a list of recommendations for a valid 2024 general election because we don't have a lot of time before our next major federal election, before the American people choose another president or choose the same president. We don't have a lot of time before we elect 26 members of Congress. So we do have a list of recommendations that could be implemented absolutely in that time frame. And, you know, obviously we're citizens, we're not officials, we're willing to help if we're called upon, but we would never insert ourselves. This is a state legislative process. But we do have a list of clear recommendations that would allow the people of New York State to feel confident with the outcome of the 2024 election.
Does anyone else have any questions for Marley?
A little bit of input, actually.
Joe Stanzione?
First, saw Marley on One American News while I was watching news one morning. And she presented, you know, her concerns about the election process and whatnot. And it was a few months later that she actually reached out and contacted me. And I met with her together with our sheriff. And it seems that the concern with the New York Citizens Audit is the integrity of our election system. And it's a legitimate concern. I know that Richmond County had its own concern. And in speaking with Richmond County District Attorney, Richmond County being Staten Island, it's my understanding that their own Board of Elections raised concerns about the election process. And they turned that over to Mike Mahan, who's the district attorney there. And Mike presented that case to the grand jury. His problem is he couldn't identify anybody who was involved in fraudulent activity, but he looked at some data that indicated to him that there were some serious concerns about the election process. And in presenting that to the district, to the grand jury actually reviewed this in quite some detail, and they came up with a 39-page report. And in that report, they proposed a 4-track reform, which they put in writing, and they made various recommendations. So I only just recently received that report. It was rather interesting. I'll share it with Brent and Marie and our election officials here and with our legislative body. But I think we all need to know that we have integrity in the election process. And if there is any fraud, certainly my office would deal with it on a case-by-case basis as it comes to us. We have dealt with some election fraud in the past. And that involved school elections, where we realized that there was an individual voting who had no right to vote in the school election. And that person was caught, and it came to my office, and we get prosecuted. So at any rate, what I'll do is share the report that I received from Richmond County.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marley. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Presentation. I think we have a lot to digest here. Do all that. What else? And we'll discuss, put together a resolution.
I want to really thank you for listening. I really do. Over 2,000 New York citizens have participated in this investigation. It's taken years. Over 7,000 New York State citizens have signed our petitions. And I just want to thank you for being willing to listen to us. It's been a little discouraging at times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have, excuse me,
One second.
just as we conclude tonight, and I'll be brief. There's not a lot of things that Republicans and Democrats agree upon at the State Board of Elections. All we've heard here tonight is something they are in strong agreement on. I'm just going to read the first 2 paragraphs of the letter that's been provided to all of you from the co-executive directors of the State Board of Elections. And this is a letter they sent to the Association of Counties to be distributed to all the county governments.
Our office writes to you regarding a serious matter impacting local legislatures throughout New York State. You have likely seen recent news coverage of a group of misinformed individuals reporting to have found major deficiencies in New York State's voter registration database. This group has alleged that countless fake voters have been inserted into the registration database in order to create invalid votes to sway elections. They claim that no election should be certified in New York State because of the alleged counterfeit registrations. Over the last year and a half, this group, New York Citizens Audit, has presented their fabricated claims throughout our state. More recently, they have brought their embellished and misleading reports before local town boards and county legislatures, requesting that these bodies take up resolutions to support their cause. The resolutions were framed around their ill-informed reports, misinterpreted passage of state and federal law, and an allegation that the 20 and 22 elections were fraudulent. Again, you should have all gotten this. There is backup to many of the claims that were just mentioned tonight that detail a response from the State Board of Elections. Again, this has been provided to you right after last month's meeting. I think you should take this information very seriously. When you hear allegations like this, certainly they're concerned. And, but unfortunately in this case, I believe them to be misleading and ill-informed. I have one example from tonight. I have that about the 2023. And just one quick example, and then you guys can determine what you want to do. This comes from a contact at the State Board of Elections that was watching tonight's presentation. It says people who were registered in 2023 last voted earlier than that. Of the few I have checked on the screen or from the screen, these folks registered in Greene County in 2023 have a voter history in other counties before that. It's really that simple. And we have some other backup from the State Board. No, I'm not getting into debate on this issue. I think we're doing a public disservice here because what we're going to do with this tonight is we're going to erode public confidence in our election system. And there is no reason to do that. I'm disappointed. I think all of the information speaks for itself, and I would ask you to consider that carefully in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, I would just comment that I think confidence has already been eroded. I have one resident from New Baltimore who has a question.
Okay.
Emery?
I'd like to know why the FOIL that was sent to Greene County was not responded to. And I thought freedom of information law required public information to be provided. So I would like an explanation for that. And also, if all this is not valid, why isn't the New York State Board of Elections meeting with the group and identifying what is right or wrong? So there's a couple of things. I'm a taxpaying citizen and I am demanding that questions be answered, and so many other people are. It's not a small group here. So, but my first question is, why wasn't the Greene County responsive to the FOIL request?
I'm not aware of a FOIL request.
I'm not either. I can look into that.
I can honestly say that we respond to numerous FOIL requests for voter registration rolls from a variety of different groups, and we always provide it. And Ted Kaplan will kick my butt if we ignored something like this, so I'm not going to do that.
You know, I don't know why everyone gets defensive. We should be all working together because we have a problem here in Greene County as well. And it's like, no one's trying to attack the Board of Elections and their competency or anything. We want on election day, the people to come in there, the data be accurate, and if there's a problem, that it gets fixed immediately, so our voters' right to vote can be achieved. So we should all be working together and saying, why is this happening and what are the answers? We American people at all levels should have answers to these questions. That's basic data up there. No one's asking you to support what the New York State Board of Elections do, Mr. Bogatis. That's not what you're here for. You represent Greene County.
But there have been answers,
And I read all those
provided.
answers.
and they're here. And they've been
They're not
provided.
Just one more thing. Nobody knows, not anybody in here knows the operations, full operations of any Board of Elections or the New York State Board of
And why
Elections.
don't
Let me finish. Until you're in that position, and you learn all the rules and regs and what you have to do. And you can bring up as much data as you want, but you're not reading the data the way it's in there. You're reading the data the way you want to read the data.
Then why don't they meet? I looked at very high.
I don't know, why didn't you?
Just
cut it
to
out
be
at the
clear,
gate.
this was a CSV file that the Board of Elections provided us. So if they provided us with something that we're reading accurately, we're absolutely receptive to providing, being provided something different. And no one is accusing anyone. These are serious questions.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Ed, thank you.
Okay. We have 4 action items. Number 1, authorizing lease agreement, Greene County Department of Human Services, Aging, and the Town of Jewett. Handle. We have a second. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. Number 2, authorizing agreement between Greene County Department of Human Services, Aging, and Anytime Home Care Incorporated.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
On the proposed contract agreement, the $2 incentive for aides to clients on the mountaintop has been eliminated?
No.
Yes.
Says none.
Elimination $2 incentive for aides on mountaintop.
But on the next resolution.
Okay,
it's
I got the wrong
there.
one. It's a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the executive director here this evening, so we direct the question to her.
Okay, well, let's vote on this one.
I can't hear.
Okay, just a minute. There's a little activity.
No, wait a minute. Well, it's
No,
yourself.
you're right. She's in a second.
Yeah, it was right, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
The elimination of $2 incentive for aides to clients on the mountaintop.
But on the other one, it says,
Wait a minute.
the next resolution
Next.
says an additional
What's the
$2.
Not understanding.
No, you're right. Right.
Right, stays in one and one's eliminated.
Yeah,
Direct the question to Stephanie, please.
yeah.
She didn't hear the question.
I didn't
Okay.
hear anything. No, when we're
On the second resolution, the $2 incentive to going to the mountaintop is eliminated. On the third resolution, the $2 incentive remains. Is it 2 separate companies? Why would one say eliminated and one would remain?
And they're both anytime home care?
I don't know.
Anytime Home Care has
Yeah.
eliminated
It's
$2.
eliminated, and then the second one doesn't list any time, but it does say, between human services and visiting nurse.
They're 2 separate companies.
Okay, so why is one eliminated and one not?
They're policies. We haven't used anytime home care since I became executive director. It's not something that we use. I just have it in place in case we need to have,
So why do we have a contract with them if we don't use them?
just in case I.
Back up.
Okay, question answered.
So we don't have to prove it then, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Did somebody move that? No.
No, I'll move it.
Handle, who's gonna second that? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, that is
True, overbought.
true overbought and leg. Number 3, authorizing agreement between Greene County Department of Human Services Aging and Visiting Nurse.
Rivera?
Handle?
Rivera and Handel seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That shall carry. Number 4 is reappointing members of the Board of Electrical Examiners.
Lennon.
Handle.
Lennon and Handel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is carried. Does there anyone have anything else for county services this evening?
You took enough of our time.
Lost
Motion to
control,
adjourn.
Lost control.
Make a motion to close.
I have leg, I need a second.
Handle.
Thank you.
You lost control.
I never had control in the first place.
Yeah, really.
Wow. Still providing level 1, level 2. But it's $4 an hour less.
Okay, the Call Public Works Committee to order at 6:57.
Exactly. We're supposed to get the best price, too. Yeah, make it more expensive. Yeah. Like the America there, right?
Going quickly through today's report,
Thank you.
County Route 40, 61 and Spruce Street, they're all federally aid and state bridge projects that we have coming up. They are expected to be constructed in 2025. They're moving along through the process of design and right away. Go to the second page, County Route 20, Sunside Road Bridge over Bowery Creek. That's also being designed in the design stage right now, including same with Platte Clove and County Route 3. Those are also expected 2025, 2026 construction season, most likely 2026 because of the right-of-way process. If we go down to the locally funded projects, County Route 1 in the town of Halkett is expected to go this year. We're currently right now trying to get estimates on the precast. That's along with County Route 67 and 23C. Those are all expected to go this year. County Route 1 culvert project in Halkett, you'll see we're requesting CWC for their flood hazard mitigation program. That is for this project. They are expected, hopefully, to do 100% of the funding for construction. They did 100% funding for the design of this project. It's a substantial amount of money. I think this is the first time we've actually worked with CWC, and I'm certainly not pleased with it. It's going extremely well. So hopefully you'll pass that resolution to go into funding for the construction process. County 23C culvert in the town of Jewett. This is actually in coordination with Greene County Soil and Water Conservation District, which we've worked with on multiple other projects prior to this, which is going to give us additional funding for this project as well. County 67 in the town of Greenville. That one is going to be fully locally funded. As you know, that bridge has been reduced to almost one lane right now. It's in dire need of replacement at this point. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it done this year, but this coming season, we're expected to get that constructed.
Is that one of our first projects?
Unfortunately, we're putting out bids for the precast, and September is going to be when they can get the precast. We'll probably start far before that with the site work footings. But that road probably won't be completed until
I mean, that,
October.
yeah, I mean, a lot of traffic on that road. That's a short,
It
that's
is.
Harry Turnpike, right? Comes all the way in from 9W up to 32. Seems like it's a long time. And we're dodging the bullet there, I think.
The precast contractors I mean, they have a lot of projects throughout this state, so.
I don't know, if there's any way you could expedite that, I would
business.
I would recommend that because it's, you know, I'm not blaming you, but
Right.
if there's you got your counters out there, you see the amount of volume of traffic going across all the way from 9W all the way to 32. And that's, you know, the area, it's a blind spot.
It is.
It's well marked.
It's definitely, it's important for us to get that finished this year. I have full confidence that it will be done this year.
Okay.
But the precast is what it is. We've gotten 2 quotes so far. Both of them are September.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that would, if we do install it, it'll be fairly quickly,
Yeah, I know.
but we won't be paving it until October.
If we even do it in October, we might want to let it settle like we normally do. I mean,
The construction season has been pushed off. I mean, we've been doing paving late in the season.
Yeah.
That's pretty late, but I think that with the warm mix that they have out there, we can do it. Counter 83 was done late in the season, and that's worked out.
Okay, thank you.
On the bottom, County 61 roadside, you'll see a resolution put up, for awarding it to a design services. We actually sent out RFPs to 5 companies. We only got 3 responses back because the extent of that's road slide. Some of them thought it would just be too extensive to do the full scope of it. We actually got 3 of them. I think that the study is definitely needed. We'll see what comes back after that as far as the design, and then when we get quotes on construction and see what they come back at.
Also a locally funded project.
Correct. Well, if developing this year's paving program, we're probably gonna put that quote out this month. So hopefully,
Have you gotten the prices for your materials for that?
we have not yet, no.
When do you usually get it? April for them?
We should be, for the paving?
Yeah.
We should be putting them out this month, and hopefully, as soon as we get that, probably 3 weeks before we get another.
What was the mileage you did last year on
We did
road?
of paving or surface treat, everything was over 20 miles.
It was over 20 miles. So are you shooting for that again?
So, absolutely. I mean, I think that the CWC, Greene County Soil and Water, helping us fund a lot of those local funded projects is huge. That allows me to use that money back into the paving program, because I expect that our EWR Pave New York to not be funded fully for what they were before. We're certainly gonna go up to Albany and push for similar funding, if not more funding, but I don't wanna bank that in until we actually are confirmed on that money. For solid waste, if anyone's been to the Catskill Transfer Station, we're getting ready for some work over there with the Justice Center, starting hopefully in several weeks. We can get some of that.
First and excavation.
So we cleared a site for them, so all that disposal of material can go to the Catskill Transfer Station, which would help our project as well. Our bid schedule opening is February 22nd, next Thursday. Hopefully those bids come back good, and we'll put it up for resolution to construct that. That station its residential drop-off area is in need of reconstruction. Logistically, if anyone's been there on the weekend, it's a madhouse. We get a lot of customers going through the residential drop-off area.
It's an accident waiting to happen. I've said that before.
Reconstruction would definitely reduce the liability of that transfer station. It's a lot of traffic. We are also looking into road surface management systems. There's a lot of discussion within our group that using AI and I know that term is put out there a lot, but we're looking into how Greene County and how our engineering department and construction can use it. We're looking into different companies that can survey our roads. We do survey our roads twice a year. This would allow us to survey it every time one of our vehicles drives over it. And then it'll get a real-time survey of all of our infrastructure. This would not only do our roads, but it would also do our road signage. We would be able to respond far quicker to any imperfections, any issues with our signage, our work management. I think that this is something that we can certainly learn from. It is expensive, but the cost benefit analysis of doing this in the future as we progress, I think it's certainly needed.
You're not getting driverless trucks, Scott.
I don't, yes, I will never go into that, but I think that learning our infrastructure, learning what works and learning what doesn't work. I mean, these programs out there will survey the roads, the imperfections on a real-time basis where, I mean, if it rains, we can see cracks. Well, this will see it far before our actually eyes can see it. These things, they're used throughout the state. Some counties are starting to implement that. I think that it would certainly allow us and reduce the amount of effort that goes for us to go into surveying it, bring it back to the office, then trying to come up with a plan of action of what kind of surface treatments, whether it's paved, full depth reclamation, crack seal. This thing will give us that information quicker so we can respond to it quicker. And the fuel system, we're in talks with a couple different companies. Next month, we'll put up a resolution to go into contract or propose to switch out our fuel system. Like I was saying before, our fuel system is on dial-up. If you've ever heard of that. It's not a web-based system. We want to go to a web-based system that's far more modern. This will eliminate the key system, which has been a huge problem for us. We have a lot of emergency services. This system can go down at any point. It's certainly, we have to do it. We have to modernize. So.
Can the towns piggyback on that?
As far as their fueling systems?
Yeah, that's for
We
cost.
could put that into the quote. I mean, we're doing individual quotes because it's such a unique, right now we have 3 different systems that we're looking into.
So it's probably gonna be similar to what the cameras were though, where they kind of require different infrastructure. Like I don't know what Catskill was looking at doing the cameras and we were doing cameras.
But it'd be,
Different.
but the hourly rate and stuff for the work would be the same.
It would be the actual hardware is OGS. I mean, it's basically, you can go on to this and find that it's the yearly service provider. That's where the major cost is, yearly maintaining it. That's where the major costs are.
Because I know the town of Hunter was looking to get into that, so if it were possible to piggyback with it, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, right now, the town of Wyndham is using a system up there that we looked into. We're just trying to narrow it down right now to figure out which is the best one for Greene County. And you'll see a bunch of resolutions for purchasing equipment. This was a long process. We actually did a lot of homework on this one. We got a lot of both departments, solid waste. We got both garage mechanics and managers. We had our engineering department do some quotes. It took a lot of effort, but I think that we got some really good prices that I think pre-COVID kind of prices. We individually went to out to bid on a lot, or out for quotes for a lot of this equipment individually. We got prices back. We decided to actually, you know what, let's see if we can get a better price doing a package deal, and that's what we did for the solid waste department and highway department. And the numbers came back extremely good, as far much lower than what our original doing individually. So I think that, I mean, just our loaders, for example, we're getting $90,000 each loader that we're trading in. It's something new that we've never really done before. We're trading them in, they're 2017s, but I think this is the trend that we want to get into. We want to get the most amount of value out of our equipment before it completely loses all of its value and we're paying full price. So I think that we're there, and I think that this is the direction that we'd like to go in.
It's got the 3 items, the payloaders and the excavator. Isn't this packaged together?
Correct.
And that's why you're getting these prices?
Absolutely.
All 5. And
All
only
5.
only 2 trades.
2 trades, correct. The 2 loaders.
All 5 are replacing something else though.
Only one, there's one loader that's not replacing anything, but the backhoe is replacing the Wyndham. A perfect example of waiting way too long to trade something in. The Wyndham loader, backhoe really has no value on the market to get rid of it, so there's no value to trade it in. We're gonna put it in the auction and see what we get, but we wouldn't get anything in trading it in.
So that's where it was.
Paul, what year is it?
2006.
And it's
Got like 50,000 an hour now.
50,000.
Yeah.
It's a good move, though.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a real good move.
And that's what we were, that's the backhoe that we're getting for the Wyndham transfer station. We originally put the bids out, or quotes out, and the numbers we're coming back at, we're kind of debating, well, can we get a couple more years out of this thing? Do we really want to spend that much money? And then when we packaged the deal together, I mean, how much less? It was
About $10,000 just on that backhoe.
just on that one piece of equipment alone. I mean, John Deere came down 140,000, Cat came down 30,000, I mean, total combined. So it was, we'd like to do this more often and kind of package these things. Seems like this is a good deal. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Don.
Okay, get right into the proposed action items, declaring 370 Manchester Street no longer needed for public use. And authorizing the sale thereof.
Martinez
Handle.
Martinez Handle, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Authorizing personnel engineering services, with Delaware Engineering, DTC, for structural valuation of 90 Allen Street, buildings and ground building. Linger? Which Linger? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, that's carried.
So we're okay to do that, even though we don't own the building?
Yeah, the county attorney is, I'll call it his counterpart at DOT. I think we want to get the title change.
Okay. It was on the hook for something.
Yeah, I agree.
A number 3, authorizing advertisement for bid for fuel oil.
Martinez.
Martinez Handle, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Authorizing the county highway and solid waste superintendent to appoint CDM Smith as consultants for engineering services for investigation and repair of 2 slide failures along County Route 61 River Road in the town of Baltimore.
Second.
Linger and Martinez, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Votes carried. Authorizing change order number 1 and 2 necessary for completion of the rehabilitation of County Route 22 bridge over Catskill Creek, bin 3-30312-0, town of Durham, pin 1760.89.
Handle.
Lana.
Handle and Lennon, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Authorizing the county highway and solid waste superintendent to apply for funding for the Catskill Water Corporation Flood Hazard Mitigation Implementation Program. Like that? Like, yeah, like, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Authorizing purchase of one new 2024 excavator.
Buellich.
I'm sorry, Buellich and who?
Me,
Lennon and Martinez.
yeah. Me.
Any opposed? That's carried. Authorizing purchase of two new 2024 wheel loaders.
Martinez, Lennon.
Martinez, Lennon, and Legg. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Resolution determining that the proposed Catskill Transfer Station residential drop-off facility is an unlisted action and will not have any significant adverse impact on the environment.
Buellich.
Buellich and Hobart, all in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Authorizing purchase of one new 2024 wheel loader.
Why not?
Buellich.
Martinez, Buellich, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
State resolution.
Authorizing purchase of one new 2024 backhoe.
Lennon.
Second.
Lennon, Buellich, Martinez,
Yep.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Budget amendment, insurance recovery, solid waste.
Hobart.
Hobart Handle, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Budget amendment, insurance recovery, solid waste.
Hobart.
Handle, Hobart. All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
That's around here tonight.
Heard it.
Jeff Legg, handle.